Welcome to the top 100 board games from Japan, part 7. Here in Taiwan, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is part 7 of an ongoing series where I'm counting down the top 100 board games from Japan. Now, each segment of the series does have a little bit of a theme. Sometimes I put all the games into a ticket ride box. I've taken them out. I've caught them from the sky. I did one during a blackout. And if you watched my last video, you know that this is one of the last videos that I'll be shooting here in Taiwan. So I have a box, packing some games. Board game themed webcomic Semi-Co-op said that this was game of the year, and I couldn't really argue with him because this game is amazing. Now, this was designed by Rainer Knizia, and it was published by Itten, a tiny little publisher that kind of makes arts interactive and somehow gamifies it. What do I like Viking See-Saw? Well, this plays extremely well from 2 to 4. It is very, very approachable. Essentially, you're just putting stuff onto this giant seesaw and hoping that it doesn't tip. And for as silly and as simple as this game is, oh my god, there is so much tension at the table. And what I love about this is that even the kiddos can come in and play. I played this with my friends, and he brought his daughter over, and we had an absolute blast playing this game, screaming, shouting, jumping up and down. Good times. This is easily one of the best games to come out of Japan, and one of the best ones from last year. And it goes in the box. Part 6 of the series had a lot of trick-taking games. This list would not be complete without one, and this is Pompiers. Now, Pompiers only plays with 4 or 5 players, and I think that's really what you want to play with. I personally like it at 4. There are not many games that I like at 5 and 6, to be completely honest. But I actually really love the cute, old-timey art of this, and I really love the goal system of this. And I love how it gives players direction, it gives them something to do, and trying to fluff a card and score a certain trick. Sometimes you score 2, and then you want to score 7, so you have 2 and 7 right above and below each other, and it just works out really, really smoothly in this game. The best part is that towards the end of the hand, you obviously know what the other players are doing, and sometimes you can see this contention between like players 1 and 3, and you know they're both going for the same goal, and everyone knows that not both of them can get it, and they're slowly fighting each other. And you can see how it plays out, and then someone wins and someone loses. And I actually really, really like that tension in the game. Pompiers has great art, great gameplay, and a really cool scoring mechanism that I think it makes it easily worth being on this list. Shop at Costco because I do, and yes, there's a Costco in Taiwan. There are several, actually. But one of the things that I do when I ship games, like when I sell them, I take them in saran wrap or plastic wrap, and I just wrap them up. And that way I know that the lid is not going to magically open, and then 5 million game pieces are floating around, flying around the box. Works really well. Mortal Kombat! Ninja Master! This game is ridiculously good times. Now, I do have a few house rules, and that is, as you say the number, you're supposed to say Ninja 7, as opposed to just 7, just because it's a little bit more fun. And then, before you roll the dice, everyone has to get into like a ninja pose, like a nice little Horinja Naruto ninja pose before they grab. That's it. Doesn't change the gameplay at all, but it makes the game twice as much fun. Ninja Master is something that really, really blows my mind. And it's also done by Rainer Knizia and by Itten. I did a video for Ninja Master already, and Viking See-Saw, and playthroughs as well. I did it for all the FunBrick series for Itten, at least for their Kickstarter. Definitely check out those videos. I'll put a link down below, and you can hear my full thoughts on this. But for Ninja Master, what I love is that the person who's leading gets a sword, and if someone takes that sword, they steal points from you. And you almost want to not be in first place, but be right in second place and grab that sword at any time. And once you win a lot of points, it's absolutely terrifying because the sword is placed right in front of you and you're just tempted to grab the sword, and that eats up one of your hands and you can't grab something else. So I really like that balancing effect that they have there, and yeah, this game is just ridiculously good times. I can't recommend it enough. Kicking it old school is number 37, Minerva. Hisashi Hayashi is one of the most prolific designers out of Japan. I've loved a lot of his games. Now, his games have been constantly being licensed by other publishers and then brought over to the West. Mostly done by the late, great TMG. May you rest in peace. This was actually brought over by Pandasaurus Games. And if you look at the old Kickstarter, it's really interesting because that Kickstarter campaign was really successful. But when you look at how it looks, it would not be a really good campaign in 2023 standards. Like, everyone is up their game, but at the time of launch, it did a really good job. And I think this game is also part of board gaming history because, as far as I know, like, this is one of the earliest forms of deluxeified board games out there. Now, the original game came in a very small box. You know, like, spoiler alert! Came in a really small box, probably the same size, roughly, as this Cat in the Box. And the tiles are really thin, and all the components are really made out of paper. But the deluxeified edition is sexy. Now, if you like tile laying games, and you like city building games, the Minerva is something that I would definitely recommend. The only complaint that I have about this, and I've seen a lot of people have this, is that they typically feel like there's the same winning strategy in the game. And that is, create one really long road and then activate it as much as you can. And you can't do that, and it's a very strong strategy. But I played it enough times to know that, like, that strategy doesn't always win the game because of the variability in the game. Like, you don't know when those rounds are going to trigger because they're kind of scattered throughout that deck, and one round could be really short, one round could be really, really long. I love the passing effect in this game because when you pass, everyone else has to spend $1 to continue to take actions, and every time it's your turn, you get $1. And I really like that tension of no, I'm just gonna pass, and as soon as the first person passes, there's immediate tension around the table, and everyone's like, "Ooh, you just screwed up everything that I had going." And I really like that. I really like that how, even though it's a multiplayer solitaire game or a knitting circle game, and there's nothing wrong with those. My wife loves them. I love them too. I really like that there's that little twist that even though I'm kind of mostly paying attention to what I'm doing, when someone passes, it really affects everything I'm doing for that round. It also has a nice solo play, and the best part is that this should be pretty easy to find in the secondhand market. The quality of components that he did, Pandasaurus did an amazing job with this deluxeified edition. Everything looks really, really good. And if you can get this on the cheap side, I definitely think it's worth getting. And this one is definitely going in the box. But we are going to wrap it in saran wrap. I know it's not bubble wrap. I know it's not going to protect the game, but it just prevents it from opening during shipping because that would be a nightmare. Because customs, I get a lot of games from overseas, and sometimes customs will poke a hole in the box just to look inside. And if I don't put saran wrap on these boxes, and I don't know, like one meeple, one cube, a couple of dollars pop out of that box, that's a nightmare. Anyway, put it in the box. Startups. Now, while this isn't the highest ranked Oink game on this list, it is the highest ranked Oink game that is designed by Jun Sasaki, founder and lead designer of Oink. And I gotta say, like, this is his best design. It is just amazing. This is one of those simple card games where you just draw a card and play a card. And it plays 3 to 7. I don't recommend playing at 6 or 7 just because there's not enough back and forth. 5, I could give or take, but 3 or 4 is where this game really, really shines. You are vying for control for all of these different startups here. And once you have the most, then you can't buy any more stock of that particular startup. So you kind of have to draw into it and then play it. And I really, really like that simple twist of the mechanic. Even better yet is, like, once the game ends, you take the cards in your hand and then you play them out because you could be holding onto a card for a special surprise there at the end with a nice little sudden twist, and I really, really like that part of the gameplay. But perhaps the best part about this is, well, Oink is just always known for making these great little epic little designs on their boxes, and Startups is even cooler because all the logos done for the Startups are really good logos. Like, any one of these could have been real companies, and that could have been a real logo. I totally would have bought into it and believed it. So if you're a startup company and you want to have your own logo, ask Jun Sasaki and Oink Games to design your logo for you because, wow, they do a really, really good job. Gamer bucket list is if I can find a copy of the Octo Coffee coffee cup, I definitely got to grab that because it just looks so cool. But I will say, the one big negative that I have for Startups is that Well, I think Startups is the best game from Oink. It is the most vicious out of all the Oink games of how in the world do I get everything back in the box, because, oh man, it is a struggle to get everything in there. There is a particular system, and when I see one of my friends trying to help out and put the game away, I'm like, no, you don't know the system, you don't know the system, and then they struggle with it, and then I get my OCD pop kicks in, and then I get nervous wreck, and it's just, you want a game with me, right? I need friends. Not gonna play you again until they cross an ocean. Wow. It's a game in the box. Coffee Roaster! This is the game that is gonna be on, I don't know, countless people's top 10 solo games of all time, because Coffee Roaster does an excellent job of abstracting the roasting of coffee, like better than any other game that I've ever played. There are quite a few coffee games out there now, and none of them feel like I am roasting coffee the way the Coffee Roaster abstracts it out. Really, really well done. I also love how there are different goals. There are different types of coffee that you can make, and there adds a lot of variety already in the game. So you have different types of coffee that you want to make, so you have different acidity, different bitterness, and you take things out of the bag and you put things into the bag, and you're trying to get that right, perfect cup of coffee. And sometimes you do a great job, sometimes you do a bad job, and you're just trying to do the best you can. And I think that Coffee Roaster is an excellent addition to your collection, especially if you love solo games. Fun board game in fact, when Coffee Roaster was first sold in Tokyo Game Market, Sashi only sold 30 copies of the game. 30. Now he gets an email pretty much like every week how this just constantly demanded, people want to get this game everywhere around the world. Like almost every country is asking, it's like, can I license Coffee Roaster? Can I license? And now Coffee Roaster has helped put Sashi and Sashi on the map, and lots of the games have this fun quirkiness to them, and Takako Takarai's art is just, fantastic. So if you're looking for nice little gems and nice little quirky games, Sashi is probably one of the best brands for that, and I think that Coffee Roaster is the best solo game that he's designed, albeit not my favorite. Warning though, if you do get this version of the game, there's a tray of components here, and if you do this with the game, all the pieces fall flat. This is one of the games that you have to store horizontally, not vertically, because but I gotta put it in the box. It's a game in the box. Ooh. Aqua Garden. This came out a few years ago via Kickstarter and was a huge splash. People really, really love this game. Yeah, you want a nice giant rondel where you're putting fish into an aquarium? Yeah, why not? And have, while you're at it, some of the best looking meeples that I've seen throughout my decades of gaming, because wow, do these meeples look really good. Now, I did cover this game already in my Totsuca Chuo, the designer here. I did a whole video about him and this design. Check out that link down below and check out that video, and you'll see a lot of his games, what I think about him, and why I think he's a really cool designer that you should pay attention to. This game has had so many expansions to it, and it's not that hard, because all you have to do is find some other random sea animal, put in a little box with a few extra rules, and then wham bam, you have a new expansion for this game. There are, I think, 4 or 5 already for this game, and then there's just another one that came out a few years ago, Beachcombing, that's just now getting fulfilled and getting to houses already, and people are saying that, surprise, surprise, they love it. I recommend this game for people who love rondels, love fish, and just like different themes. And as I said before, the meeples for this game are, Uchibakoya makes some of the best in the industry. Goes in the box. Now, I had a hard time deciding whether or not to put this on this list. This comes from Marche Games, and it is a Japanese publisher, and they originally made this game, but it wasn't until Homo Sapien Labs, a Taiwanese publisher, licensed it that I got to play it. And in fact, Homo Sapien Labs brought it to Itten, and that's how most people know of this game. Now, I really, really like this game, but it wasn't until last year when they had an expansion for it, which is just like 10 cards. But once they added that, it just made this game far more than the sum of its parts. Now, I love small box games that come in sleeves, especially this one, because man, oh man, there are a ton of dice in this game. Now, in dice fishing, you're gonna flip over one of these cards, and the hooks there are for points. There's a type of fish there for you. That's the number value, and that's the die that you have to roll, and it must match 6. That means you gotta roll a d6 and get a 6. Not the easiest way to do it. But what's really cool about this game is that it becomes this bluffing building game. Now with this particular fish, you might want to roll 5 of your d6s, hoping that at least one of them gets a 6. But then someone else might bid 4. I can do that in 3 dice. I can do that 2. And then Joe Schmo is going to do it in 1 die. And as he goes first, because the player who bids the fewest dice goes first, he's going to roll, and everyone's on the edge of their seat, because if he rolls a 6, the whole table explodes. And I absolutely love the amount of energy that this game brings to the table. Now, the expansion makes this game so much better, because the difference is that instead of 1 card appearing, now 2 cards appear. So when you choose your dice and you roll them, well, you can be going for 1 fish, you can go for the other, but if you get both fish with that 1 roll, then you get both fish. And that makes the game so cool. Because now you're thinking, well, I gotta go for that one, or should I go for that one, or do I go for both? And do you go big and go last, hoping that maybe you could do it, or are you going ultra crazy and going for both with the fewest dice possible? And it just adds this nice warm feeling to the game, and it's an excellent party game that has lots of highs, lots of lows. Now, layered upon that craziness, you also get a d10 and a d20 to give special powers as you play to help mitigate the die rolls. So it just makes the game have a lot more fuzziness there and adds more chaos to the game. This is one of the best party games that I've ever played, and easily one that I strongly recommend you trying out. To the box with you, little game. You probably have never heard of this game, and I don't blame you, because this game is not easy to find. If you saw my previous video where I talked about Totsuca Chuo, I put a link down below for that video. Please check that out. I talk about the designer and all his games to date, and why I think this one is very cool. If you do get this game though, you need to get the deluxe version with all of these crazy cute eraser animals, because oh man, cuteness overload. Now there are a lot of cool mechanisms that I really enjoy in this game. One of them are the goal cards and how he does that. Now you notice, like in the game where usually you'll start off the game and maybe you get like 2 goal cards and you pick one and then you put one back in the box, and that's the goal card that you're going to use. This one does something a little bit different. He gives you goal cards, you get to keep both, but at the end of the game you choose which one you keep, and the other one goes sent off into the box. That adds a lot of flexibility there for you. And I didn't think it would be that big of a deal, but oh, it's a big deal. That inherent fuzziness of I should go A, I should go B, and then as long as you go somewhere in between, you can always teeter back and forth as to which of the other 2 that you're going to go for. And I really like how that affects the decision making in the game. Now while this game plays well at 2 and at 3, oh, the 4-player game is just perfect. In the center of the board is this nice 4x4 16 square board, and on it you're going to put all your little animals here, and you're going to place them all along here. Now everyone's board matches up here, and then on your turn you're going to be pulling animals from different columns or different rows and using them to go into your shops and triggering them. And each of your shops can have a different amount of chairs, so you can pull the different amount of animals, and you're pulling these, and these are the workers that you're sharing. And it creates this really interesting dynamic of having a shared worker, like a pool of workers that you're using. Now on top of that weird interaction, you could build things on here, which means like you can close the space so no animal goes there. You could build another space where like 2 animals can go there instead of 1. And it creates this really interesting, I don't know, like interaction between the players. This nice, strong, indirect, but direct interaction with the players. I find this to be really fascinating. A lot of really cool ideas here. Now there is some Japanese in the game, but the English rules are available online. Also, I believe on the BGG I made these translation paste ups that you could put, just leave the cards, slide it in, and you have the English there for you. But this is a tableau building game, and because of that, it does take up a lot of space, because you take all these cards and then you splay them out all over the table. So you might think that, well, this is going to be the same thing, Jay. I find one good engine and I'll just use it again every single game. But no, it's different, because there are individual player powers. You get to play as all these different characters, or just one of them, and that character gives you a special scoring mechanism or a special play, and that changes up the strategy that you want to use. So each game feels a little bit different, and how that center board interacts throughout the gameplay, it can really affect your decision process throughout the game. And I love how tight this game is. For as silly and as cute as this is, wow. Wow. You proud of yourself? She's very proud of herself. Fun side note is that the first time I played this with my wife, she squealed, saw the animals, and then I had to wait like 10 to 20 minutes so she could be finished taking photos of all the animals and putting them in these weird positions and poses. And she's like, oh, it's so cute, it's so cute, it's so cute.
You're lying.
Feed me, Seymour, feed me games. Saporro, 1876. Now this is an excellent two-player game. Now, Takeo Yamada is a name that you probably have heard before. He does a lot of games with Uchibukoya, and I do think that his games are all super solid, but this one by far is his best design. Saporro 1876 is a really interesting two-player game, and it's super quick. Before you know it, the game's over. It only takes about like 45 minutes. But what's really interesting is the central board mechanic. Here are the 4 main actions that you'll take in the game, and on your turn, you're going to take this token and then move it to one of these 4 areas. And you can't go to the one that it already is. And once you go to one place, you take all the money that's there, and then all the other locations get money. So it creates this nice, weird incentivization mechanism, which you've seen in other games for sure. But what's really cool about this is that when you take an action on this side, this counter slowly begins to move down. When you take an action on this side, this counter also begins to slowly move down. Once the counter hits one of these icons, it triggers an event. This side gives you tons of resources, so you get to have stronger turns coming up. This one allows you to score lots of points, so you can, win the game. And once this adds up to 5, then the game immediately ends, and then you go into final scoring. Now, what's really cool about that is that you can have like 3 harvests, 2 settlements, 1 settlement, 4 harvests, and it's completely up to you about how you decide to play the game with your opponents. But this game comes from Uchibukoya, so you're gonna get a lot of quality. Now, these player boards, are double layered. You didn't have to be, but they are, and it adds this nice little touch to the game. You're also gonna get tons of great looking meeples in this game. The only problem that I have with the game, by far the only problem, is the money. There's just not enough of it. And it's to the point where every time you have 5 ones, you have to trade it in for a 5, because otherwise there's not enough money and it becomes really, really confusing. So I just play with poker chips just because it's a lot easier and I don't have to deal with this. And I really wish that wasn't the case, because these money tokens are this nice chunky looking pieces that look really, really, really cool. Now this part of the board is where all the fun puzzly parts are. This part is for end of the game VP scoring, and there are these great personalities from actual historical people who helped found Saporro. Down below are these building tiles that you'll acquire that allow you more efficient actions and give you actions that only you have and your opponent doesn't. And that's what makes this game really, really fun and really, really shine. Now, unfortunately, none of the components have English on them. So when you get these VIP tiles, not cards, they're nothing but in Japanese. However, the building tiles, while there is some Japanese, you really don't need to know what it says and what it does. And the iconography is very, very clear. But the game does come with an English rulebook that translates everything on there. So long as when all the VIPs go out, you together talk about what they do and each one of them do, then it shouldn't be a problem. This is a really, really tight puzzle that gets started and ends super quickly. And that's what I love most about it. This has this nice resource management puzzle that you have to play against. And I really like how it's player controlled about when you get more resources or when you score points, and I really like that back and forth, and I love the fact that it's player decided and player driven. Now, as luck would have it, right now Uchibukoya has launched a crowdfunding campaign. Not Kickstarter, not GameFound, but closer to how like GMT, the war game publisher, does these like P500 prints. So Uchibukoya is getting people who are interested in it, and then as soon as it hits a certain mark, then they'll publish the game. But they're not just publishing Saporro 1876, they're also publishing another game, Otaru 1899, which is a game that's also by Takeo Yamada and has very similar mechanics and is also a 2-player only game. And on top of that level of craziness is that you can combine Saporro 1876 and Otaru 1899 and play a 4-player game using the components of the 2 games combined. Wow! One more game for the beast. Just 3 more videos left in this series. Make sure you subscribe below because I'm going to be cranking out these videos all throughout September. See you in the next video.